You're listening to Epic Footnote Productions. Go to Linktree/Epic Footnote for links to all of our streaming platforms, YouTube channel, social media pages, and merch site. That's linktr.ee/Epic Footnote.
Hey everyone, what's going on? So if you have to pick three, it's Matt.
And it's Zach.
I get a top three list. Zach gets a top three list. We fight out for a final top three list. Actually, let's just say we collaborate on a top three.
Collaborate, yeah.
And you click the picture. You know, there's a lot that can be said about a band's sophomore album. You know, they're not new to the industry anymore. They maybe been around the block on a tour or a lot of tours. And now they get back into the studio and they can really show what they're made of. You know, maybe they're not going to be one-hit wonders. So we are trying to pick the top three sophomore albums of all time.
And dare I say, this might be the toughest topic we've ever done for an If You Have to Pick Three episode, because I kind of forgot how many great sophomore albums came out in our lifetime and how so many artists really took it to the next level with their second album. Or even if their first album was considered just incredible and game changer, there's so many, into what was Matt kind of saying, just like times that a band came and just really showed that, no, we are the real deal. We are really stepping up. And that's a reason why a lot of artists actually say that creating that second album is even tougher than creating the debut. I mean, if you think about it, they've had their whole careers before getting signed or before becoming a band to release an album, to work on that debut. And sometimes they don't have much that time to do the second album. And you can really tell if the band has it by album number 2. And I think this list that both Matt and I are going to be collaborating on, as Matt was saying earlier, is going to show that these artists really did prove that they have it. So with that in mind, Matt, would you like to go first and share which 3 sophomore albums you think are the best?
Well, alrighty then. I guess I'll start.
Go ahead.
All right. Oh, and by the way, we're not doing EPs. EPs don't count as albums.
Yeah. Which is tough. But come on. Come up with 5 more songs and just make it an album. Just do it.
The first one on my list, you might think it's kind of like a duh album, but think about this for a second. Back when this band came out, you know, they might have been really big with fans, but to read the reviews of this band when they came out, you would think that they were just some run-of-the-mill schmucks that really didn't have much behind them. And boy, did they prove everybody wrong years later. But going back and looking at Led Zeppelin's Zeppelin 2, this is one of, if not their best album, in my opinion. It's incredible to think that some people and some critics back in the day thought that this album was just okay. You know, Led Zeppelin, they're okay. If you're unfamiliar with Led Zeppelin 2, this is where a lot of people got introduced to Led Zeppelin. Whole Lot of Love, What Is and What Should Never Be, Thank You, Heartbreaker, Livin' Lovin', Ramble On. There's tons and tons of classic Zeppelin songs that you're going to find on here. 9, to be exact. That's a ton. But the Zeppelin classics that you all know and love, a lot of them come from this album. This is Led Zeppelin really showing that, okay, you know, we're not just a simple blues rock band. You know, there's a little more soul here. There's a little bit more experimentalness to our sound. There's a lot that goes on Zeppelin 2. It's a very, very good 41 minutes of music. If you've never heard Zeppelin 2 before,
hold on.
Go check it out.
Who's listening to this podcast and has never heard Led Zeppelin 2? Speak up.
You don't know what tweeners are doing.
That was such an old man comment.
I know.
But side note also, I mean, we touched on this in a past If You Have to Pick Three episode, that not only did Led Zeppelin create that album, but they created that album plus Led Zeppelin 1, or this debut self-titled album, within the same year.
Yes.
Like, boom. If you have to question why Led Zeppelin are rock gods, there's your answer.
So go pick yourself up a copy or go to Spotify or Apple Music and make sure that you listen to Zeppelin 2 if you don't know who
Did you
Zeppelin
throw in the
is.
streaming platforms just so you didn't sound old the way you were like leading into that
Of
sentence?
course.
Like, go to your record store after you go to get a soda pop by the soda joint, whatever they used to call it.
I'm not that old.
You're sounding like it. What was the
Back
Great
in
War like,
my
Matt?
day, soda was 50 cents.
50 cents?
Anyway, getting back on track. So yes, Zeppelin 2. Go learn yourself some music if you haven't heard Zeppelin 2.
Get off my lawn.
Old man yells at cloud. All right, so for my second pick, this one might be a little bit of low-hanging fruit if you have listened to any of our podcasts at all ever. You may know that both Zach and myself are huge Metallica fans.
What?
So, of course, why would we not mention that Ride the Lightning is one of the best Sophomore albums ever?
Why not?
Well, you see, Metallica, they were a young, hungry band. And I've said this many a time. They were a young, hungry band on their debut album. I would almost consider that to be Metallica light. It wasn't really Metallica sounding like Metallica. And I've said this before. This shouldn't come as a shock to anybody unless you've never listened to us.
We've debated this many a times, but go on.
With Ride the Lightning, this is the first time Metallica is truly sounding, acting, playing, and being just Metallica in the studio. They did everything right on Ride the Lightning. Maybe except for Escape, because the label said that they needed one more song. They did one more song, and that's really it. And they played it live, I think, like once or twice. Aside from Escape, everything else on here is Metallica classics, Metallica coming into their own, honing in on what the Metallica sound is. And then that led them, of course, to bigger and better things in the future. But looking at the starting point of what made Metallica Metallica, Ride the Lightning is it. So that is number 2. And finally, number 3, is he going to do the thing? Is he going to do the thing? I can't believe he didn't do the thing yet. Is he going to do the thing?
What thing, Matt?
That thing, of course, is the Stone Temple Pilots' 1994 album Purple.
Oh, whoa, now. Whoa. Didn't see that one coming.
No, that's not the thing I'm doing. Of course it's Nirvana's Nevermind. Come on.
What the fuck? I actually believed you for a second.
Come on.
So to clarify, what is your third pick?
Nirvana's Nevermind, of course.
Never mind. Continue.
You wanted to do the joke.
I did. It was great. Worth
It
it.
was awful. Now we're going back to the Stone Temple Pilots.
Honestly, I was kind of looking forward to hearing you defend that one, but here we are.
Oh, no, it's Nevermind. Of course it's Nevermind. The only album to have a lead single inspired by deodorant.
Do you know that's the only reason why?
No, it's not. But it's a very big reason why. Because Smells Like Teen Spirit, it was unescapable. It was loud, brash, different. It's what killed hair metal. It's grunge in its most pure form. If you wanted to examine where did grunge come from, you can put your finger squarely on Smells Like Teen Spirit. That's what blew up grunge. That's what made it a thing. That's what made Nirvana a thing. Bleach was good. Nevermind was mind-blowing. The entire album is a classic from start to finish. Lithium, In Bloom, Come As You Are, Breed, Polly. There are so many good songs on Nevermind. It's an iconic cover too that goes along with the album. It's not, it's a controversial cover.
We've talked about the cover.
Yeah, we talked about the cover. We talked about this album at lengths in many of our other episodes.
Well, I mean, you can't understate how. I mean, I actually kind of got soured on Nirvana because it was so overplayed. This particular album itself, but there's still no denying. And even as you get older, you're like, oh no, this is a great album. And you also cannot deny that it was, as you highlighted, a game changer of an album. Not many albums can say that they literally changed the landscape of what was popular in music like this album did in the 90s.
There's no doubt.
No doubt.
No doubt.
Not the band, No Doubt. Just adding a little clarification there.
But I mean, there's still teenagers now wearing Nirvana shirts squarely because of Nevermind. So this album, if you have never heard Nevermind, first off, welcome to music. Welcome to our podcast. And go check out Nirvana's Nevermind, because you're going to get a music education.
You've heard it. You may not even realize you've heard it. You've heard it. That's how popular this album is.
So there we go. Those are the top 3 sophomore albums of all time. Zeppelin's Zeppelin 2, Nirvana's Nevermind, and Metallica's Ride the Lightning. So Zach, what say you?
Well, I'm going to start off my list with another album in the same vein, in that it's so game-changing and popular of an album that you've heard it. You've heard it, even if you haven't realized you heard it. And also, honestly, I'm a little surprised. I was kind of expecting you to pick this album, because we've talked about this album on many episodes. And just like Metallica, if you've listened to any of our episodes, you know that Matt and I love us some Black Sabbath. We've dedicated many an episode. We even talked about this a little bit in a recent, if you have to pick 3, about bands who released great albums, and 2 great albums in the same year. I am, of course, talking about Black Sabbath's Paranoid, or War Pigs, depending on how you like to rephrase it. That's the original title. But Paranoid itself, I mean, just the 2 lead singles alone, Iron Man and Paranoid, those 2 songs alone make this album iconic, in that it's just some of the most recognizable pieces of work in heavy music and just rock in general. And it just showed that here is a band that went from, the dark, satanic sounding band that kind of scared everyone, from critics and fans alike, on the self-titled debut, to oh no, this is a freaking band that knows how to write songs. And it's clearly like the way that they just fine-tune their sound so quick. That alone is scary. But then you get songs like Fairies Wear Boots that show just their technicality and jazz elements, and an Electric Caravan that just has the sonic and just eeriness and just jazz. But then, of course, the most epic song in metal, dare I say, War Pigs. It just got everything you love about Black Sabbath. And dare I say, that particular album, I mean, you talk about albums that helped shape a whole genre for decades and decades after it. You think of this album, Paranoid, and you think of just Black Sabbath in general, but this one in particular. Like, if anyone goes, who is Black Sabbath? Well, first you go like, what the hell are you talking about? And then you show them the album Paranoid. That's the album you make them listen to first. Not much more can be said. I mean, clearly, Black Sabbath's Paranoid, boom. That's my first pick. My second pick, we're going to go down a more pop direction. A few years back, when we did if you have to pick 3 best albums of the 2010s, as soon as we finished that episode, I realized, nope, I was wrong. I did this episode disjustice because I forgot to name this album as one of my picks, because this particular album not only solidified this singer as probably one of the biggest, most unique, and just greatest singers of our generation, but it was just inescapable. It just blew up in so many ways, and just to the point that when you hear the name Adele, you think of just already icon superstar in such a short time frame. And really, her album 21 is what solidified her as that larger than life icon, and probably the greatest singer of the past decade, maybe even 2 decades, dare I say. I mean, forget the fact that you got songs like Rolling in Deep and I Set Fire to the Rain. You also, and of course, Someone Like You. But then you also even got deep tracks like Turning Tables, and even her cover of The Cure's Love Song. It's it took what Amy Winehouse was doing with Back to Black, another amazing Sophomore album, by the way, almost made it to my list. And it just kind of even fine-tuned it a little bit more and added an even more orchestral but still emotional hook and pop to it. I mean, it's still just even more than a decade later, it's still an album that just kind of makes you go, huh, I do have a heart still. I still do feel. Thank you, Adele, for reminding me. And we reviewed her last album 30, and it was hard to kind of review it and not be critical and compare it to her past work, because 21 really was that damn good of an album. It still holds up phenomenally. So, second pick, Adele's 21. And my third pick, this one is where we get a little tough, because I bet you that if you ask me next week, I'm going to have a different answer, and I might end up kicking myself over a bunch of, because there are some amazing albums that I could choose from, but I think I'm going to lean towards an album that, even though it's not necessarily one of my favorites, it's hard to deny the impact it had on that artist. Now, I know it sounds like we're doing a bunch of plugs for past if you have to pick 3 episodes, but we've talked about how the Beastie Boys really evolved their sound since they first started to where they ended. I mean, if you count the first 2 EPs, now remember, we're not counting EPs in this episode, but if you had counted the first 2 EPs, they went from hardcore to then party rap, and then to just alternative rap, hip hop, even a little punk, and just really just expanding what hip hop could be. And really, it all started with Paul's Boutique. Now, granted, Paul's Boutique was not as successful initially as Licensed to Ill, which I'm sure the label was definitely disappointed at the time, but eventually that album really did catch on, and it just made critics go, oh, you know what, these aren't just the guys who want to fight for your right to party. They're not just a bunch of 3 white guys just trying to be silly and rap over guitar riffs. Like, no, this is a band that's really pushing the boundaries of hip hop.
No partying, I'm out.
Like, hey ladies, and it just added just different flares and elements, and it just slowly, it really just highlighted, like, yeah, this is a group that you need to take seriously, and it paved the way for them to do albums like Check Your Head and Ill Communication. It really was this is where the Beastie Boys found their groove. No pun intended, or just, that kind of sounds weird, but this is where the Beastie Boys really became what we know as the Beastie Boys. So, to recap, Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique, Adele's 21, and Black Sabbath's Paranoid. I'm not going to lie, this is a tough one. I don't know if I have a compromise, because I feel like all 6 albums are just... Is it fair to say definitely Led Zeppelin's 2 and Black Sabbath's Paranoid? Or would you put Nirvana? You know what? I would almost say I could live with Nirvana's Nevermind, Black Sabbath's Paranoid, and Led Zeppelin's 2. Because all 3 of those albums were game changers.
Yeah, that sounds like the right list. I
mean, that just sounds right. Like, we could go down the rabbit hole of trying to fight for Ride the Lightning or 21, but it's got to be Nirvana's Nevermind, Black Sabbath's Paranoid, and Led Zeppelin's 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a thing.
We did it. We did it. Woo! But what say you? Did we forget an album? Are you disappointed that Matt didn't go through explaining why Stone Temple Pilots Purple was the best Sophomore album? Do you think one of our albums is far superior and should be on the list? Let us know on Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, Threads if you're still on there, God bless you, TikTok, any social media platform, we're probably on it. Let us know what you think. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can hear a ton more episodes like this, as well as let's go even deeper into the albums that we discussed on this episode. And a major special shout out to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
Log on to Lucky13, beardco.com, and if you've ever wanted to try Beard Balm or oil, that is the website to go to, because they have some of the finest beard balms and oils on the internet, and we're collaborating with them on a beard oil modeled after Lemmy from Motorhead. Not in a Lemmy-shaped bottle, but modeling it after
every opportunity.
I know, right?
We need to talk to Ed about that.
But what Lemmy was all about. Bourbon, tobacco, cola, leather. It smells amazing. You're going to feel incredible after you put it on. Your beer going to be silky, smooth. It is going to leave you feeling probably the best you've ever felt after shaving. So if you're still kind of on the fence, well, I'll tip you a little bit further in the right direction, because we're going to give you 10% off of your entire order. All you got to use is the code EFP10 at checkout. 10% off of everything in your cart. Lucky13, the number beardco.com. Use that code EFP10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order.
And if you want to help us continue to do episodes like this, or even just, let your friends know, hey, I like to listen to Matt and Zach talk about Sophomore albums and other music, go and buy an Epic Footnote t-shirt, a hoodie, a hat, a coffee mug even, with our cool logo on it. You can find all of this at the link in our bio, linktree/Epic Footnote. It's good, like I said, good way to support us, good way to let your friends know I like music podcasts. Yeah, you should check it out too. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you join us for another episode real soon.
See ya.